Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. Yes. How are you?
I'm doing good, man.
Excellent.
And guess what else?
Thank you.
Those fans.
The fans.
You guys are killing it, man. We can't thank you enough.
Yeah, and it's getting to be summer, so we need more fans.
Yes, tell your friends.
Tell your
Definitely.
friends.
Look, this thing lives because of you guys passing along to other guys.
Right. Or girls.
And we've got a couple of those I've got in the thing, so I'm talking to.
Yeah, let's not leave the women folk out.
Yeah.
We've had a couple on, so I'm sure there's a couple listeners.
Yeah, guys, you better start making sure the chops are good, because some of these girls that I'm trying to yeah, they can tear it up.
I believe the word is shred.
Yes.
If
we want to use that.
Right. I'm using it in the best possible light.
Yeah.
As opposed to shred.
Yeah. So make sure, thank you also for clicking through the banner on Amazon on our front page, which is ampsandaxescast.com.
Yes, it is.
And also check out Mr. Jason Seditas, his Quick Lick.
Quick Lick.
The guy is just a mensch. He just constantly is just spot on. He's better than I am putting out the show, which I apologize. Sometimes it's a little bit later, but it is on Saturdays, so don't yell at me.
Well, this thing called life comes up.
Well, it ain't much life. It's called the day job. It kind of gets in the way.
Well, it's work in one form or another.
Yes, that is true.
No matter what it is. So, yeah.
Also, when you're there, make sure you go and click on those little icons that are on there. That's the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, all that.
Right.
Definitely go to
social media.
Yeah, go to Instagram. Follow us. I'll follow you back. That's the way we're going to do it. We're going to be cool like that because that's what,
I'm paranoid. I don't like people following me.
I understand.
Okay.
Don't do it through his Facebook.
No.
Do it through but like the Amps and Axes on Facebook.
Absolutely. I do.
Hey, we'd like to hit 1,000 real quick.
Real soon.
So please just go out to Facebook, look for Amps and Axes, and then just like it because that'd be kind of cool for Memorial Day.
It would. It would be awesome.
Yeah.
It would be awesome.
And I guess we have one correction. Well, it's not really a correction. Last week's show, when I produced it, BB had passed away already.
By the time you produced it?
By the time I produced it and we got it out the door, BB had passed. We actually started the show talking about BB and his health.
And
and what was going on with his manager and all. So,
and his ill keep.
We lost. He's one of the original guys. I mean, Buddy Guy and then Guitar Shorty and Robert Cray. Is there anybody else that's still around? Is Gatemouth Brown still around?
I don't know if Gatemouth is around.
I'd have to look all this up, I guess. But, just that guy influenced a lot of people, man.
Oh, probably. And like, we keep getting people that we interview, a lot of their big influences were the Beatles, Yeah. But I honestly think if you really look into it, I think BB might have influenced more people than the Beatles did.
Yeah, because the guy, he did these weird waves of how he changed his style over the years, and then just these resurgence. Mm-hmm. He was a blues guy that was in the light, where a lot of blues guys, even though you know them.
Right.
They were not in the mainstream like BB was.
Right. And the Beatles thing, it was more a pop, I guess, for lack of a better term, of their early music.
Great music, great musicians, but yeah, definitely more of the pop thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And, maybe for some people that was the catalyst to learn, but maybe it just didn't hit you in the gut or the soul or the heart, the way one of BB's notes could hit you.
Yeah,
you
that
know?
man could shake a note and make that thing sound like a million, you know? And singing. He was so powerful with his singing. You know, that was the weird thing, man. When I saw him live. I got to see him live one time. But actually, Buddy Guy opened up for him.
Oh, nice.
And but man, when he would sing, it was like, whoa. So that guitar was just the extension. You know, it was just
his voice was another instrument.
Absolutely.
You know,
I
said the same thing years ago about Leslie West because his voice is so powerful and unusual and strong and raspy and everything.
Yeah.
It was simply another instrument. It was like he played two things. He played his voice and he played his guitar.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with BB.
Yeah. Both of those guys. You imagine like it could get very loud in a house. You know what I mean? Like when he needs to get your attention. No problem either one of those guys.
There's so much power there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he sung with the mic off to the side. You know, and
Yes.
probably never really sang directly into the mic. And who the hell would have to?
Well, the PA guy was probably like, "Look, we've replaced 5 diaphragms this week, and we need you to stop."
We'll just put it off to the side. You just sing normally.
These mics are expensive.
Yeah. So you know. Man, one of the early, one of the best. It was absolute icon.
And thank you for everybody that they would like our stuff that I was doing on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
because it's a sad day, man. But
it was,
and the way that he,
that was unfortunate.
Yeah, that whole thing is just the ugly side of that. That hopefully will be sorted out.
I hope so.
Who knows?
I mean, the only thing worse would have been. And I'm not saying this in any derogatory way at all, but the only thing worse would have been if he had to live poor for a long time. Because, oh my God,
Yeah, nothing like that at that age.
No. No.
Just, yeah.
So, BB, thank you.
Yes, man.
Thank you. And one other thing before we get into our guest, I don't want to leave it on kind of a downer thing.
Yeah.
But we're right around Memorial Day, Yeah,
it's coming up.
It's coming up real soon.
Yeah.
A couple days or something. And I just wanted to put out there that, we always tell people to try to do what you like and find something that you like and learn it, and maybe you can make your living that way. And,
I wish I could.
But you're doing what you're really good at. So
we need more listeners, please.
But a good friend of ours and of the show, Vance of Sheffield Audio and Video, out in Maryland, he just posted something that I thought was very interesting because they're a school.
Yes.
They teach audio recording, they teach video recording, they teach all aspects of it.
I took a tour. With my daughter. Yeah, it was amazing.
Totally. Yeah. And he mentioned something that I thought was. I thought I would put it out there just around Memorial Day, because we kind of honor the veterans and everything. Those guys should be able to take advantage of their veterans' benefits to go somewhere, go find some schooling and some education to what they want. And actually, Sheffield does have some veterans' benefits. So if you're a vet and you want to go learn how to record me, you listen to us and you go, I love to record stuff. I wish I knew more. I wish I could, start my career.
That is cool.
If you're anywhere in the area, and I'm sure you could kind of move into the area for a little while or something for the schooling.
Yeah, it's not very long.
Contact Vance at Sheffield and see if you've got some kind of vet benefits that you can use there, and maybe they can help you start a career in recording.
Yeah, and my daughter was going for the film aspect, but not expensive. Not expensive at all. I can't quote a number because...
who remembers?
Yeah.
Right.
But I remember I was like, you know what? That's not bad. And if you go full time, I don't even think you go a year. I think it's like 6 months.
Yeah.
And you get you're done,
You're
man.
deep in it.
Yeah, you've got it. And guess what? They also job placement.
Mm-hmm.
They do help you get into the areas where it'd be almost impossible because... internships and stuff, they usually only take college students, but they also, Sheffield is one of those schools that they allow those guys to.
Absolutely.
You can't just go in off the street and do an internship. They don't really do that.
No, not anymore.
No.
You got to have something behind you, some kind of piece of paper behind you. So, hey man, if you're into music, if you're into recording and you're a vet, call Sheffield Audio Video in Maryland and maybe
Drew Missouri, maybe your teacher.
That's true. That's entirely true.
And he's on one of our episodes. You'd have to go back and look, but he's definitely there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so
man.
Thank you, vets, and if that is any help at all, happy to do it. So that's one for Memorial Day.
Sure.
And
thank you guys for keeping this country safe.
Yes.
And
letting us do this.
A little quick note, real quick, about veterans. I'll say my age. I'm 47 years old. I remember the time when I would think about like guys, getting limbs blown off and stuff, and they were older than me. Mm-hmm. Well, now I can be the father of those guys getting their limbs blown off, and that is the most disturbing thing to me.
Yeah,
because it's like that's somebody's kid.
Mm-hmm.
I have kids. I know you have kids. You know what that's like. Mm-hmm. You don't want your kid doing anything at any age that's going to make them an amputee.
Right.
And that's what we get a lot.
Yeah.
They either get killed or they're losing limbs. And let me tell you, man, when you see these guys, seriously, thank them for what they've done.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I don't care what side of politics you're on.
No.
These guys aren't.
Exactly.
So just thank them for what they do.
Yeah, they're staring down the barrel every day.
So watch this.
Okay, it's segue time.
It's segue time. Right? Speaking of military,
yes, we
have a guest coming on today that emulates someone that was actually in the military back in the 60s.
Paratrooper.
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Dishonorable discharge.
Was it dishonorable?
I think it was. I don't think it was. He got hurt. So I don't know.
He got hurt. That can't be a dishonorable.
I don't know. It was the 60s.
Anyway, was in the service.
Yes.
Our guest today does a hell of a tribute to this guy. And he's also in a very cool other band, which is that's a tribute band too. So, but actually with founding members.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So it's a kind of a carry-on band. But anyway,
yeah.
Our guest does a Hendrix thing, and he's also in a Heart band who has the original members of Heart in it. So when we come back, we're going to bring you our guest for this week, a gentleman called Randy Hansen.
Hey everybody, this is Dan McLaughlin, bass player for the Push Stars and record producer, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
All right, and as promised, here with us with the magic of Skype communications is Mr. Randy Hansen. Randy, how are you, my friend?
Good, and how are you guys doing?
We're doing great, man.
Hey, man.
Thank you for taking the time. I know you. I know we had to push this back a couple of weeks because you, being the busy man you are, you just got back from Europe.
Yeah, I did, yeah. And you guys are on the East Coast, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just got back from 3 trips over to the East Coast. The last one was actually 4 if you count coming back from Europe, too, because they always stop in New York or Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah. Well, we count everything, so,
But I went over and played a few shows on the East Coast, too, recently, so...
Cool. Well, we're gonna get into that, but as I always like to do with our guests, Mick knows this. I like to get in the Wayback Machine and go all the way back to the beginning and find out where Randy Hansen came from and what gave him the music bug. So tell us a little about yourself, man. Where you were born and raised, and when did you and how did you wind up getting into music?
Well, I was born and raised here in Seattle. My dad was a mailman, and my mom was just a housewife, and my dad also liked to play the horses and stuff like that too. But he got killed in a car accident when I was 10 years old.
Oh, sorry.
And then, and it was really unfortunate because he was really, we were really close and everything. But it's just one of those things that happen to you in life, Yeah. And so. Right after that, like when I first emerged from the house after he died, I went to my friend's house and his father answered the door and I said, "Is Alan home?" And he goes, "Yeah," and he grabbed me by my shirt and he threw me in a chair and he said, "Stay right there." And he acted like I was in trouble or something. And I thought, oh my God, I must have done something wrong here.
Gonna get my ass whooped.
And he came out with 2 guitars, and he put one of them in my lap, and he started forming my fingers into a shape of a chord and put a pick in my hand. Said, shake this thing like a thermometer, like that. Now get it close to the strings. And then all of a sudden I was strumming an E chord. And it was like, and I wasn't even, it was, he forced me to do this just, and I really had no desire at all.
So you had showed no interest to anyone prior to this in guitar or music or anything.
Not in guitar. I wanted to be a drummer. But then, so like every time I went over to visit this friend of mine, he kept doing it to me and teaching me new chords and strumming techniques. And then eventually started showing me a little bit about how to play lead guitar and stuff like that. And then I started picking things up on my own off of the radio, because after you learn these chords, you start hearing them being used in songs.
Yeah.
And I started recognizing, these chords that I would learn. And then that's what was the beginning of me, my guitar journey.
That's pretty well. I want to back up. I want to back up just for 1 second, because we had a little drop out there. And when I asked you if you had any interest in music or guitar, you said not guitar. Did you mention some other instrument? Because we lost you for a second there.
Yeah, I wanted to be a drummer.
Okay.
Yeah, I even had a set of sticks that I carried around with me and everything. I didn't have any drums, but I used to beat on things with these drumsticks all over the place.
I did the same thing, man. I know what happened. The friend's house that you went over.
Yeah.
Your mom called his dad and said, make him play another instrument because he's beating up everything in my house with the drumsticks.
It's entirely possible. Because occasionally we'd go over to this other friend of mine's house and watch him play the drums.
Yeah.
And everything. And then there was other bands around that were just propping up right back then. And, it was right when the Beatles were popular, when the Beatles first emerged.
Yeah, we get that so often.
That is so crazy, isn't it?
It kind of tells you how old I am.
Yeah, but we do get it so often, man. It's like they had such an impact.
Insane.
An insane impact. And you know what I'm just realizing? We have not heard, I don't even know if we've heard it once. Have we ever heard the Rolling Stones?
No.
Having that impact? And they came out right around the same time, and you were either in one camp or you were the other.
Yeah.
You were Beatles or you were in the Stones camp. And
well, you know what? I ended up learning both because my sisters, who were older than me, loved both of those bands, and so those records were in our house and everything. And so some of the first stuff that I learned was from my sister's record collection and things like that, and then what I picked out for my own self at the time, which was like Beatles mainly, and then also the Ventures. I learned a lot of Ventures stuff and surf guitar.
Well, that's a West Coast thing, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So here's how I figure we'll get that guy. Is when we interview one of the guys from the Black Crowes, then we'll get, I learned the Rolling Stones were the band.
That's probably
you know
true.
What I mean?
That's probably true.
That lead singer and I are friends. I can't remember his name. I used to run into him all the time.
Of who?
The Black Crowes?
Black Crowes, yeah.
Oh, Rich Robinson?
Yeah.
Yeah, he made a cross for me, like a Christian cross, but it was covered with snakeskin.
Wow.
It was pretty cool looking.
No, wait, Chris Robinson's the singer. Rich is the
brother.
The guitar player brother, yeah.
He's the one that gets beat up by Chris.
I used to run into a lot of these guys, back in the day, like Tesla and everything. They used to be, I think they were called City Kid or something like that.
Mm.
And they used to open for, I used to go through a lot of towns and everything, and there'd be these bands that would open for me. Stevie Ray Vaughan used to open for me. A whole bunch of different people that ended up being pretty big. What's the other one? Little Pink Houses.
Mellencamp?
John Cougar Mellencamp, yeah. Or John Mellencamp.
Yeah, used to open for me.
Wow.
Yeah, all kinds of people. But, it was because what I was doing with the Hendrix show back then, there wasn't any rock tribute bands out. We were like the first ones, so it was such an oddity that it took me places that, most like today's tribute bands didn't get to go.
Wow. So what's I mean, obviously when you were first starting to learn, Hendrix wasn't out yet because the Beatles were out. So you started learning all this, the Beatles stuff and the Venture stuff, and I imagine there were some high school bands in there, and
Oh yeah, everybody, you name it. Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple. And it ended up being like Mahavishnu Orchestra and all kinds of wild jazz stuff, and I've kind of followed the trend of where the people thought the guitar should go, and followed the guitar trends, and also was trying to, at the same time I was trying to blend things together myself, on my own. Mm-hmm. But it was people. I've got a little bit of the Superman syndrome where people see me as the Jimi Hendrix guy, and so I've got that too. I mean, that's the biggest part of me probably as far as guitar playing is concerned. But I'm influenced by so many other guitar players also.
Well, yeah, going back to Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, and the Ventures. I mean, a lot of people do mention the Ventures as being an influence in that because of course, a instrumental band, a very heavy guitar band. That's a whole West Coast, big reverb kind of.
Was it all
thing.
Strats on the front of that cover?
Probably. No.
Jazz Masters.
Jazz Masters, Strats, like probably a P bass or something.
Yeah.
And
old Fender stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, being from Seattle, I'm sure he, it's like a prerequisite.
Well, it's Fender World out the left coast there,
exactly.
Yeah. And they're just up the street in Tacoma too, so that's where the Ventures were all from.
Oh,
and then there was a big Seattle scene back then in the early '60s.
Really?
Too.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, like the guys that wrote Louie were from up here.
The Kingsmen, right?
Yeah, and
of course, Hendrix was from there.
There was a song called "The Witch." I don't know if that made it over to there. It went da 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 da. Cause she's a witch.
I don't know if I heard it, but I like it.
I like it now. Yeah,
I like it.
The song at the time, everybody was like really rocking to it over here. So, but, it wasn't until I got over to the East Coast that I heard songs that I never heard before that were popular over there too.
Huh.
Wow. What when you started playing and doing the high school bands and the garage bands and everything? Do you remember what like your first cool guitar or your first cool rig was?
Well, but I didn't think I got really a cool rig until I got in my first professional band. I didn't really, like I had a Univox copy of a Les Paul, and I had a Canadian amp called a Trainer.
Oh, yeah.
Trainer, yeah, man.
And I had a home-built cabinet that I didn't even know how to wire. I just wired it up. And I don't know how it didn't blow the amp head up on it because it had 3 12-inch speakers in it. And I built it myself. I just thought 3 was my number, so I didn't know what I was doing,
I love that.
It's the Trainer Vibra King.
Right.
Yeah. I was getting a very original sound,
I did exactly the same kind of thing, man. I built a speaker cabinet. It's funny. I
built one too.
I had a Univox Les Paul copy, and
wow.
I had an amp before this, but my first brand new amp that my dad had purchased for me.
Yeah.
At Rondo Music in Union, New Jersey, back in the day, was the other Canadian amp, the Garnet.
Oh, the Garnet, yeah.
That was Randy Bachman's big amp.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. And that's so funny. He had the Trainer, I had the Garnet. Both.
Yeah, I used to see the guy in the Guess Who wearing Garnet T-shirts.
Well, it's funny because I built a cabinet with 2 15-inch Trainer bass speakers, and on top, and now, this is no lie, it's a true story. And on top of it, I had a 63 Vibrolux reverb. That's what I used.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that was my new amp.
Wow, that's cool.
And I always used to go, man, this thing isn't loud enough. And guys were like, that thing sounds amazing.
When I finally joined this band called Kid Chrysler and the Cruisers, that's when I started, that's when I got my first Marshall head and first Marshall cabinet. And before then, I had a blonde Tremolux Fender rig that is worth quite a bit of money now today if I can get my hands on it. And that sounded really good, but I kept getting complaints from the band and the people that I was too loud and everything, and you know, I've always been too loud, I guess. But
so of course you go from a 35 watt Tremolux to like a 50 or 100 watt Marshall, because that will solve that problem.
Well, luckily it had a master volume on it, so I never got it up past it.
So you got one of the newer ones, you know, the 2-input with the master, not the 4-input.
It was right when they first put the master volume in there.
Yeah, 100 watt or 50 watt?
It was a 50 watt.
2204 back in the day.
Yeah,
it's good. That amp's really sought after now too.
Oh yeah.
Now the 2203 was the 100.
No, the 2203 was 100. 2204 was the 50. Go figure.
Yeah. Why?
Maybe they made the 100 first and then went, this is too loud, we got to make a 50. I don't know.
In hundreds, if you had a 100 watter and you're using it in rehearsal and it doesn't have a master volume, oh my God, you're just like...
Yeah, everybody's dead.
You have to wear earplugs or some kind of protection because it's just deafening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we all know what happens after that. All the musicians in that band that wind up having children have girls. Because that's just the way it goes. It messes things up.
Yeah, luckily, I somehow escaped that somehow.
Oh wow!
I had a boy, and we actually play together. He plays drums.
Oh, cool.
And, he plays a little tiny bit of guitar. I'm glad he stayed away from the guitar because you don't want to be, you know, that's what I'm best known for, and it would put too much pressure on him to like have to practice all the time.
Or it would put too much pressure on you, because I know kids that have sons, and they eventually wind up running circles around the dad, and dad's going, "Oh, damn, I just got to quit now."
Yeah, he would never be able to do that anyway.
That's awesome. That's too funny.
It's like I tell my son, he's a black belt in Hapkido, an adult black belt, and I said, "Don't ever try to kick my butt. I will tear you up." So it's always the same thing, you know.
Right.
They're like, yeah, you can go ahead and play guitar, but you're not going to beat me.
You're the sensei, you know. Come on, you know. I'm sure all kind of students say, "I'm going to take the sensei on," and then he just goes flick and boom, you know.
That's right. Oh my God, that's too funny. Well, where did we end off musically? We started to go towards.
Yeah, so but I want to ask him because he said he got
I was in this band, Kid Chrysler and the Cruisers.
Right, that's where we left off.
Now you got your amp, but when did the Strat thing happen? Did that happen right at that same time too?
That happened then too, because the other guitar player before me, whose place I was taking in Kid Chrysler, he played a Strat. And I liked the way it sounded. Plus, it was 50s music, and so it had to be kind of doinky, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really looking forward to any of my friends coming to see me play because of playing just plain old 50s music, which was, to me, very simple and easy. And but I did learn a lot of songs, you know, that I didn't know before. It was just... and then they didn't just do 50s music, though. They did a jazz set and a dinner jazz set, and then they also did a top 50 set.
Wow!
When I joined, and so I had to learn all these different songs and everything. And then they were always updating the dance set, the top 40 set, as far as new music was concerned. And when they found out that I had an ear, they elected me as the guy to learn all the songs and teach them all their parts.
Wow.
So that worked in my favor a lot, you know, because I've always liked lifting stuff off of records, you know, and it's always been fun for me. I skipped my senior year of high school and stayed behind at school every day because my dad was gone and my mom was gone to work. The house was empty all day long, so I just pretend that I was going to school and fake my mom out and go around to the back and go in the basement and go back to sleep until she left for work.
Wow!
And then I'd have to run to the house, and you know, and school would call, "Is Randy there?" Oh yeah, he doesn't feel well today, and I'd lower my voice.
Freaking great.
They go, okay, well, just send him back with a note, and I just kept that up for my entire senior year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Randy really doesn't feel good.
And they probably thought I was close to death or something. But, you know, I only did that because at the very beginning of the year, the counselor brought me in and said, you have no chance of graduating.
Don't you just love that?
Chance of graduating, right?
Wow.
Telling me this right at the beginning of the year. What am I doing here? And so I went home, and immediately I didn't even go to my next class. I left right then and there and went home, and I said, hell with this. I'm going to learn to play this guitar if it kills me, because this is what I want to do. I want to be a guitar player. That's what I want to do in life. And I knew it then.
That's good.
Right? And she made me make my decision, And my mom made me go to summer school and go back to school the next year. But then I left the next year to go on the road with another band that I had just before Kid Chrysler. But then I came back. We didn't have any more gigs, and it didn't look lucrative to my mom. So she threatened me, you have to start paying me rent. And so then I joined Kid Chrysler, and then I was on the road for 9 months without even coming home. And
wow,
freaked my mom out, And I was with that band for 5 years, and that's where we came up with the idea of. We went and saw this comedy duo, and they made up in the middle of their show. They made up this fictitious rock star guy who came crawling out of the side of the stage and crawled up a microphone like a snake, and he was kind of like Alice Cooper. And it gave Gary McKinney, Kid Chrysler, the idea. He said, hey, we should add another comedy show. Let's make fun of rock stars. And then he looked over at me and goes, who do you want to make fun of, Toad? That's what they called me then, Toad. And I said, I don't want to make fun of him, but I want to do Jimi Hendrix. And he said, you want to do Jimmy seriously then? I said, yeah. He goes, okay, well, we'll make fun of everyone else, and you can do Jimi Hendrix seriously, and we'll in the show. And we'll put that together. And that was the beginning of the Hendrix show.
Wow, that's pretty bizarre.
But I'd already learned a lot of Jimmy's songs and everything, and that's why I said that immediately when he said that, because I finally have a vehicle to.
Sure.
These songs I learned, and so I immediately taught the band these songs. And the first night that we did it, it went over like incredibly.
Now, when was this? Was Jimmy still around?
No, this is 5 years after his death.
Oh, okay.
77?
75. I think he died in 70, late 70?
Yeah, he died in 70.
Oh, that's right. Why did I think 72?
No, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm sure somebody else died then.
I'm sure they did.
It was September 18th, 1970.
Okay. So 75.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that would have, and you know what? That would have been, that was good timing because, people were starving for good music in 75 because the disco thing started happening.
When I did it, though, to me, the reason I said that, too, is I also jumped at the chance because I was freaked out. The day Jimmy died, it totally scared me, and I really actually got frightened about it because I thought, after my father died, Jimmy was my guiding light, kind of.
Wow.
And when he died, then it was like 2 in a row now. 2 of my biggest guides in my life are both gone. And now and who do I turn to now? Richie Blackmore? I don't think so. I just.
Hey, what's the matter with Blackmore?
Nothing against Richie. I love Richie really great, and Jeff Beck and everything. But as far as depth of lyric and depth of songwriting and having the whole package, I mean, he was like Jimmy was like the Roy Jones Jr. of for boxing. Roy Jones was like pretty untouchable for a long time.
Well, you figure he sang and he played, and where Blackmore didn't sing,
right?
And Beck doesn't, so
so Jimmy's the package, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like I just was enthralled with him, and when the day that I found out that he died, I really panicked. I immediately went to my record collection and I began learning piece by piece everything I could. I tried to grab every bit of it, and I thought somebody's got it. I felt like I was salvaging a boat that was sinking, and I was trying to get as much out of it before the damn thing sank.
Wow.
And
sure.
And I'm still salvaging. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
there's still stuff come out that I have not figured out how he did it yet. You know, there's still stuff out there.
Yeah. Plus, they release new music all the time.
Oh, yeah. Eddie's remastering and digging up tapes all the time.
Yeah.
You know.
And you go, my God, there must have been tons of stuff just laying around.
Some of it is sheer luck of the time and the take. You know, it's just like, wow. I mean, it'll never sound like that again. Mm-hmm. And Jimmy knew that too. But he was blessed with the magic hands. You know, so. You know, what can I say? He's, for me, if I was an actor, he'd be my Marilyn Monroe or
wow,
you know, or my Humphrey Bogart, or somebody, you know,
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the story about Hendrix's death is like one of those, like, it's like Bruce Lee. You know, it's got like some mystery behind it because supposedly I heard that it was the ENTs or the EMTs that basically killed him because they strapped him to the stretcher and he vomited and choked on it, and they didn't realize.
If you really want to get into all that, that's just a story that was fed.
Oh, okay. See,
fed to everyone, right? And, you know, like I spent time at Monica Danneman's house. That's who was with Jimmy when Jimmy died.
Okay.
You know, and she never even really brought up the subject. We never really talked about it. But I played with Mitch, and I played with Noel, and I played with Buddy, and I played with Billy.
Wow.
And I'm friends with Leon to this day. And they all had one thing in common, and that's that they said Jimmy was murdered.
Wow.
And it was that Jimmy was murdered by Mike Jeffries at behest of the CIA and, you know, our government at the time, you know, because think about this for a second. Now, our government at the time was Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
And now Richard had Jimmy on a list along with a lot of other people, John Lennon and everybody who was heads of the hippie movement was on this list.
Real subversives.
And the reason he thought they were subversives is they really thought that the hippie movement was sponsored by the communists because kids are talking about communes and living in places like that and changing and breaking down society and everything and let's change it all and everything. And the big wigs back then took that as a sign of they're talking communism. They don't know it, but they're talking communism. And actually, he was right. They were talking communism.
Communism or socialism or something similar. Yeah.
Something similar to that. And it scared him. And now he had all these people on an enemies list and everything. And it was well known that Mike Jeffries was connected with the CIA and the mafia, and that he was Jimi Hendrix's manager. 2 weeks before his managerial contract was up is when Jimmy died. And also 2 weeks before a life insurance policy, which got collected by Mike Jeffries, would have been up also 2 weeks later. But Jimmy died, and just in a nick of time for that policy, because Jimmy was about to let Mike Jeffries go because he didn't like him, but he wanted to try to get away from this management. But he even told his grandmother, you know, next time you see me, it'll be in a pine box.
Whoa.
You know, when he was here in Seattle, the time that I saw him here, it's the only time that I saw him in Seattle. And he was pretty dismayed when he was here, I remember. He wasn't in a good mood. And
probably a lot on his mind, you know, a lot in the back of his mind.
Yeah, a lot. And, you know, and it was at a time in his career where they'd pretty much really beaten him with being on the road or in the studio and not had a lot of time off. And, you know, so.
That is crazy, man.
I mean, he was constantly doing things, but the thing was that he's probably like a lot of artists where your brain never shuts off. So, you know, 3 a.m. it's time to go into the studio. I got things on my mind I want to put down, you know. So
Yeah, another thing that I thought was odd, a few things that I thought were odd about Jimmy's death, too, about his lungs being filled with wine and his stomach, but they couldn't find any in his bloodstream, which means it was put in very fast.
And
after he was dead.
Quite possibly after the fact, yeah.
You know, and how do you fill your lungs up with wine? I don't know how you could do that. No. You know, even if you were vomiting and you were inhaling because you couldn't move over or something, I don't think you would fill your lungs with wine.
Right. That's like somebody trying to pour it down his throat and it going into the lungs at the same time. That's wow.
Well, if you're dead, it'll go.
Right. Oh yeah. Nothing stopping it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and then so that's a strange thing. And then Monica, you know, she was sued by Kathy Etchingham about, it was because Kathy had said that Monica didn't tell the truth about that night in some publication. Oh, excuse me. And so because of that, Monica sued her. And in court over there, you better get it right, because if you lose, you're going to have to pay for everything.
Yeah. The way it should be here.
Yeah. And so they went to court, and Monica lost, which meant that she had not told the truth about that evening. And she was due to go into court right again, you know, like the next week. And instead, she was found dead in her car, at her home. Whoa. The home that I visited.
Wow.
She was in the garage inside of her car with the car running.
Man,
so that's how she was supposed to come back and tell the truth about that evening, but then never got to tell the truth. And she's really the only witness. So
right. The last witness gone. Yeah,
I find that kind of suspicious, you know, and
just a little.
Yeah, that is. That's crazy.
You know what's crazy about this whole thing?
Yes, sir.
You know, Hendrix and everybody else and Lennon were on this watch list.
Yeah.
Yet he deputizes Elvis.
There you go. Well, he figured he was going to end it himself, which he did.
I think Elvis, you know, represented something a little bit more sane to.
They painted
at least on the surface.
Yeah, they painted a great
Elvis
picture.
wasn't saying quit your job and be subversive or anything. Elvis is like good old American pie. Get it right out there, children. Come on, let's all get it together.
You're just shaking the hips.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That is never heard that story before.
Wow. Yeah. That's wild. I try to tell people that because I've heard all kinds of things about Jimmy's death that were obviously really wrong, you know, where they said, oh, he died of a heroin overdose. And I go like, no, he didn't do heroin.
You see how that urban legend gets built, and it was probably, look, if it was somebody that was high up, then that story was released.
You got no problem starting a rumor.
Oh, yeah, it's real easy.
That's why I only smoke weed. You can't, if I show up, if you find out that I drank myself to death or something like that, someone will go, hey, that's completely wrong. He didn't drink.
Right.
Or they say he took a bunch of pills, and no, he didn't have any pills, and he didn't ever take pills. And, you know, I've kept that side of my life, you know, and nobody ODs on weed. So it's like, you're going to have to shove a bale of that stuff down.
Well, you know, then it would be in your stomach and your lungs, you know.
We found him with a hay bale in his mouth.
There's a visual for you.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm sorry.
I don't know. We took a left turn, but that's great. We always love story. We love the story.
That story is amazing.
So you like 4 or 5 years after the fact, you start doing this Hendrix thing as a closer for the Cruisers.
Right.
Do I have this right? Okay.
Yeah, that's what we ended up doing at the last part of the night was this other rock star show. Now, we made fun of everybody else, and the funny parts were pretty funny. One of the things, especially we did Randy Bachman, that what I think was the topper, because that was Gary McKinney, Kid Chrysler. He'd come out and he'd put on like a baseball cap and a fake beard, and then he had on sweatshirt that said BTO on the front. He shoved a pillow up underneath it. And then he had like big loggers boots, and he came out carrying a bag of groceries. And he'd come out to the mic, and the whole time he's like, he'd start singing, I forget, we're taking care of business or something.
Probably.
And the whole time he's singing, he's eating potato chips.
Oh my God!
And while he's eating, he's spitting potato chips everywhere, and everything. And then when it would finally come to a guitar solo, he'd go, all this singing really makes me hungry. And he's been eating the whole time, right? So he would pull a box of. He'd go, nothing like a good breakfast. He'd pull a box of Cheerios or something out of out of this bag of groceries. And he had like a table sitting there, and he's working like a magician kind of thing. And he pulls this box out and he rips the top off the box and he pulls the bag out and pops it open. He doesn't even rip it open. He just goes bang like that and pops it open, drops it back in the box. And he had this down. He worked on it so he could do it so fast it was like Fonzie, So it's like, so it was really great. And then he has the thing open and he goes, well, you need some milk, and he'd pour, and he'd pour the milk into the bag. And then he'd put that down. He goes, and then he'd find a bag of sugar that he had in there. He'd pour some. He'd just grab a handful of sugar and dump it in there. And then he'd say, I usually like a couple eggs for breakfast. And he'd pull a couple eggs out. And he'd bust them and put them in the
Jesus Christ.
And then he'd look around, and he'd see someone's drink on a table, and he would just reach over and grab their drink, and he'd pour their drink into the box. And then he'd grab someone's ashtray.
Oh my God!
Pour an ashtray into the box. And then he would reach his hand down in and he would start mixing it all up like this. In the meantime, I'm playing like the solo, and you ain't seen nothing yet. and he's
obviously
digging through the box like this, and then he comes up with a big handful of it, like a huge scoop of it, And this is this is like just around close to closing time in Anchorage, Alaska, in the Holiday Inn lounge, where all these pipeliner guys are all in there with all their money and they're drunk on their ass, so they're all in there just yelling, and everything he does, they're going, oh, and we're getting big reactions from everything he does. Then he comes out with this handful of this gunk and everything on his hands, and it's dripping down his arm. And he gets on the mic and he goes, you people probably want me to eat this, don't you? And, they're all drunk. They're just like going crazy now. Eat it, yeah. And everybody's really going crazy. So he would eat this stuff. He would put it in his mouth and he would act like he was chewing it up. But he's really spitting it out. But it was hilarious. And it's all in that fake beard and everything. The grossest thing you've ever seen in your life. Even me. And I'd been in the 50s band for 5 years. It was like, I was like, oh, Gary, that's really gross.
Yeah, those ashes would make you vomit.
At that time of night, though, the place just loved it.
Oh, wow. I can imagine.
And they were just cracking up, laughing like you wouldn't believe.
Well, this is after the dinner crowd left, because don't forget they used to do a dinner set first.
Yes.
That's all started out. Our night started out so proper and so nice. and it ended up with that.
And you're like wasted. You're in the audience. You're wasted by the end of the night and go, holy shit, Hendrix came back to life.
Yeah, and then the weird stuff that happened around that too. I'll tell you another.
There was weird stuff.
The really funny thing that happened is, I used to go up the street to a place called Chillicothe Charlie's and jam after we got through playing with Kid Chrysler, because I just loved to play and I kept playing, And I went up there and jammed with a guy named Lindy Raines, who was another really great guitar player up in Alaska. And so I went up there this one night after playing the Hendrix show, and I used to put on, makeup and a wig and everything, and you would have swore I was black, really. And so I go up to the front door of Chillicote's, and the doorman is there, and I forgot my wallet. And shit, I don't have any ID. I go, hey man, I'm sorry I don't have any ID, but I'm just playing up the street at the Holiday Inn. He goes, oh, yeah, what do you play? And I said, I play guitar. And he goes, I was just at the Holiday Inn the other night. There's a black guy playing the guitar. And I go, well, that was me. I was wearing makeup and a wig. And he goes, I don't think so. And I go, look behind my ear. Look, I'll probably still have some of the makeup. And he looks, and he goes, that could be dirt. I go, I tell you what, ask Lindy up on the stage. If you'll let me in, I'll go right up on the stage and I'll prove to you I'm the same guitar player. And he goes, okay. So he let me in just long enough to go straight to the stage and go up and play a song. So I got up there and I played with my teeth behind my head, between my legs, and did a whole bunch of tricks and flipped the guitar around, and then, stopped. And then I went back down. And I go, okay. And he goes, that could have been you. He goes, but I'm going to go there tomorrow night, and if you ain't there, Anchorage is a small place. Get out of here. I'll find your ass and I will kick your ass.
Oh my God.
That's a lot of anger.
Really?
So he showed up the next night at the Holiday Inn, and at approximately the same time, I guess he maybe got his shift only allowed him to see the Hendrix part of the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I ran up to him while I was doing the Hendrix thing. I go, it's me. He's like, all right, and he high-fived me and everything. Everything was cool after that, So then I didn't. From after then, he never asked me for ID coming in.
Man, that's a lot of proof required to get into a club, wouldn't you think?
That tells you not a lot going on in Anchorage,
right? Hunt you down, son. Wow,
also,
that's crazy.
Guy on your end of the woods, the guy who owns MTV, Mark Goodman.
Uh-huh.
You know who Mark Goodman is?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, he made a big fuss about me on MTV because I played Hendrix in a Devo video.
That's right, you did.
Our experience, and so he said a lot of nice things about me on MTV. So when he got here to Seattle and I had an opportunity to go to actually meet him, I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Mark, I really appreciate you." What you said about me on MTV. I just wanted to thank you. He goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, who are you? And I said, I'm Randy Hansen. He goes, you're not Randy Hansen. I saw Randy Hansen at the Tower Theater in Philadelphia. He's a black man. I said, no, that was me. I was wearing a wig and makeup. And he said, no, that was definitely. And he wouldn't believe me.
Guys like Rodney Dangerfield, I get no respect.
I pulled my wallet out and showed him my ID. He goes, there's a lot of Randy Hansens in the world.
Man, nobody wanted to believe
Jesus Christ.
Nobody would believe me. And then I said, look, I'm putting the Band of Gypsies together right now as we speak. I'm talking to Buddy Miles and Billy Cox about putting the Band of Gypsies together. And he throws a card at me as he walked away from me. He goes, if it happens, call me. Like, really doubtful. And I was like, oh, man.
Okay.
And so I never did make any other contact with him. I did put the Band of Gypsies together, but I was a little pissed about the way he treated me. So I didn't say anything to him and anything. But I always wanted to meet him again and go, do you still think I'm a black guy?
That is the craziest story,
really,
man.
Really. And then, he gets on stage at the other club after the doorman lets him in, does this whole thing, and the doorman has the balls to say, well, that could have been you. Like, or the other guy that does that in town, right?
Well,
seriously.
Anchorage is just crawling with those guys.
Right, exactly.
I was thinking, God, do all the guitar players in Anchorage play with their teeth?
That's crazy.
That is so cool.
So
man.
when did, obviously you had the Strat and the Marshall back then. When did it go from you being in the Cruisers to go, I'm gonna do a Hendrix thing. I already got the gear. I already got the Hendrix stuff down. I'm gonna put together a Hendrix trio.
I was totally intent on staying with Kid Chrysler, but Gary, he goes, hey, I want to, you and I need to go. I want you to meet me somewhere. So he had me meet him at this place called Easy Street. It was a bar in U District close to his house. And so I went in there, and he said, I have to tell you that you are incredible. I love having you in Kid Chrysler and everything. And don't get me wrong, but the people that have been booking us, the agency, has been getting calls for the Hendrix show. And he says, I want to keep this band a 50s comedy band, and I want to, I don't want that to change. And he says, I think what you need to do is put together your own band around this Hendrix thing.
Wow.
And they're ready to book you. So I'm letting you go so that you can go start your own band.
Wow. I mean, how do you say no to that?
It's actually,
So I said, okay. But then I thought, well, God, who do I get for this now? People that know it are in the band.
Yeah.
I didn't know it. So then as soon as they found out that Gary fired me, the bass player and drummer came to me, who I got into the band because they were replacements for an earlier Kid Chrysler.
Huh.
And the bass player I'd known since junior high. So they both came to me and said, we want to go with you. And so that ended up being the Hendrix show that everybody saw, that I took coast to coast.
Wow.
Well, he almost kind of shot himself in the foot.
Yeah. Gary.
Yes, he did. He ended up, just him and his girlfriend were the only ones left of Kid Chrysler. And so he had to start a whole new band again. And he did. And you'd have to talk to him about what happened after that, because I was too busy to keep tabs on anything. And there wasn't no internet then. So
Right. Wow, that's crazy. So that was Kid Chrysler, what you said was what, 74, 75-ish, I guess. So this was probably a little after that?
It was late 73 when I joined, and then 75 when the Hendrix show part of it started.
Wow.
And that went on for, I think, another 2 years before he came to me and said, okay, start your own band.
So 77, 78.
Yeah. And then I didn't know what. Luckily, when also the club found out that I was starting this new band, the club decided to hire me for 6 months.
Wow.
That I was in. I went, wow, steady work for 6 months, great. But we didn't end up being there for 6 months. We ended up there for 2 months, and then things started spreading out because people heard that there was this Hendrix guy out in this little club, and everybody in Seattle came to see me. All the bands that were, including Heart, which is how I got the connection with Heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then they took me on the road. But one thing that I kind of, and I can't take credit for this. I mean, Jimmy wrote great music, right? And everyone that I ended up playing with found it hard to follow. They found this hard act to follow because of Jimmy's music and the power in Jimmy's music. That the music that they were playing was really great music, but Jimmy's music was really, really great. And I got a chance to go out and really turn on some people with it.
Mm-hmm.
And things went my way a lot of times, really extraordinarily, where I was going, oh my God, like we started out opening for Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, and it ended up headlining the show for the remainder of the tour because he said he didn't want to follow us.
Wow.
And I love Richie Blackmore. I'm like, Richie, you're what? Like, no, not really. I mean, I thought of all the people that this wouldn't intimidate Richie Blackmore in the least, but it ended up. And then when I went back to see Richie, when he got back together with Deep Purple, I went up to him and I go, "Hi, Richie, remember me?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I remember you." And he didn't say much for a while, and I just said, "Well, yeah, nice. You guys were great." I just laid on the compliments because I love him with Deep Purple. He is the shit when he's with Deep Purple.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And so and I was, and when I ran out of compliments, I said, well, I was about to say goodbye to him because he wasn't saying anything. He stopped me and he says, I just have to tell you something. And I go, what's that? And he goes, you're the only bloke that's ever intimidated me. And I went,
wow.
And I just about fainted. I was like, what? Oh, come on, you're really? No. Wow, really? It's been serious. I was going like,
what a compliment.
I said, well, Richie, if you were intimidated by me, a lot of what I do, I learned from you. So,
you were a good teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of all the theatrical guitar players, him and Pete Townsend are my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The theatrical players of where all of a sudden you don't know what they're going to do and you don't know what they're thinking. And you know that it's going to be vicious and wild. Whatever is about to happen, you're going to see some craziness, that is going to be controlled. I don't know if you can... Controlled craziness. It's like a Hannibal Lecter on the guitar,
The controlled chaos.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
I know I'm the only one who knows how to do this. And
they're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And for him to say that to me, it was like God, I probably got an immediate erection.
That's crazy. Man.
Well,
he's one of my tone benchmarks for sure.
It's ironic. I was listening to "Knocking on Your Back Door," and that solo in there just sounds like the amplifier is just coming apart.
Yeah.
I mean, and it just sounds like the strings are just being literally mutilated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he showed me his rig too, and he had these big speakers that stuck out the back of the Marshall cabinets. They had to cut holes so the magnets could stick out the back of the cabinets.
What?
And everything. He had these really wild speakers. I'd never seen anything like them. Wow. They wouldn't fit in a normal Marshall cabinet, so they had to cut holes in order so that
that's a deep.
I don't
speaker.
know. I don't know anything deeper than an EV-SRO, and I don't know that they wouldn't fit.
What is it? They're 14 inches deep, right?
I can't.
Nobody was using it. It was really weird. He brought me around to the back and he goes, check this out. And I went, wow. And then he had that, I think it was a Revox tape recorder that he was using for echo.
Yeah, and a boost.
Yeah. He had like a Hornby Skews thing, or all these weird, things that I didn't understand. He really has an original way of doing things.
Oh yeah,
as far as to get that Richie Blackmore sound.
Yeah, it's just so saturated. It's so
crazy.
It's so clear. It's so saturated.
It's rips. To me, it's like it just screams Stratocaster.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, Stratocaster that. Has those balls that you see on the back of a truck.
Yeah, I found out things about Richie too that I didn't know. Like he won't go on stage until he's heard either "Hey Joe" or "The Wind Cries Mary" played through the PA system. He has to hear a Hendrix song played through the PA, or he won't go on.
Wow. I guess that's some kind of subconscious inspiration or something.
Well, he said that when he joined Deep Purple, that his aim was to do some sort of Hendrix type thing. People didn't spot it so much because of his style of, he was a trained guitar player. Mm-hmm. He actually received classical training on the guitar. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Jimmy was so self-taught. So that's the difference you hear in his playing, but the approach is almost the same. Beefing up the signal of the Strat into a Marshall. The only thing he's not known for a wah-wah pedal, really. Mm-hmm. But spacing long, echoey notes and stuff like that. He's known for playing melodic and also very incredibly fast. That describes both Jimmy and Richie.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so funny that Richie set out to do something Hendrix-like, but he's got such a style of his own that even though he goes to emulate somebody like Hendrix, it still comes out sounding like Richie, And that's that. I mean, that's the sign of a player who absolutely has their own thing going on. You know,
Sure.
all these influences, but you don't wind up sounding like your influences. You wind up sounding like you.
Well, it's also like the European guys. A lot of them, with all, especially the metal guys, like Randy was saying, they have a classical background because it was heavier over there than here.
Mm-hmm.
So guys here, it has a whole different spin. Because a lot of them are just learn from the blues, and then they take those things. So it is interesting how those two things are different. You know,
and a lot through a lot of music is all the rumor mill. That everybody talks about. Have you, how many people are talking about Yngwie when he came out, or Satriani. Joe Satriani used to sell me all my pedals at Guitar Center in L.A. He used to be the guy behind the counter to me, and then all of a sudden he hit big. Another guy that was like, and he's instantly recognizable.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's what I like about the guitar is there's so much room to throw your own personality in there, to where like Jeff Beck, to me, when I hear Jeff Beck, a lot of it is serious, but a lot of it is really tongue-in-cheek funny.
Mm-hmm.
He's making the guitar sing the way Buckwheat used to sing,
Yeah, his licks are just full of personality. His personality coming out.
It's all this, and people
but in such a melodic way. It's like it almost doesn't make musical sense, yet it's so melodic in the context of what he's doing. He's another such an incredible original player.
Yeah, and to go see him, it always, if you're a guitar player, you're going to end up not only be intimidated, but you're going to be so entertained and end up smiling.
Oh, yeah.
But you'll go like, well, I'm not even going to go home and try to do that because I know that I will fail.
Miserably.
What's funny is I sold Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
And he had Jennifer Batten as his as the other guitar player.
Was it Pier 6?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And people were upset because she really didn't get much to do in that thing.
Right.
And I was like, it's Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell?
And I'm sure she was very happy playing second guitar to Jeff Beck.
Absolutely. Yeah,
what a gig. What a gig.
Exactly.
Jennifer's whole trip really is to back up the big guys. She really loves doing that. She was Michael Jackson's guitar player and Jeff Beck's, and she does her own stuff too, I'm sure. But it's like that girl who played bass for Jeff Beck for a while. She made a real splash when she showed up.
Tal Wilkenfeld.
Yeah.
Yeah, but since she's not in Jeff Beck's band anymore, you don't hear about her anymore right now because she doesn't have the publicity mill on her side yet. So and I think Jeff might have gone, wait a minute, she's getting a lot more press than I think she should right now. I need to get a less cute bass player, also female, who won't get quite as much press.
Right. So you got Rhonda.
So he toned that down a little bit. He got somebody who wasn't going to be quite as threatening to Jeff's career because they were really talking about Tal, and I was going, wow, and I'm sure.
First time I saw her, I thought it was his daughter. I went, "Oh, isn't that cute? He's got his daughter on stage." And then she started playing.
Yeah, and you go, no, this
exactly.
How could she be that cute and that good?
Yeah, for sure.
So I'll bet a lot of people were like paying a lot of attention to her while she was playing, and Jeff is like used to looking down and seeing everybody's eyes on him, and suddenly they're not all on him. And that's a little disheartening if your name is on the marquee, I think.
That's true, I guess. That's true. But you a few minutes ago you mentioned Satch being the guy behind the counter that sold you all your pedals. Let's get into some Hendrix Effects that you use, some pedals. What's in Randy's rig right now when you're doing the Hendrix thing, which you just got back from Europe doing, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's another thing I want to touch on for real quickly. But go ahead.
Well, now I go first. The first thing I run into right now is something that Jimmy probably wouldn't have used live, or he would be using live now, I think. if I could show it to him, he'd go like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool." And what I use first is a compressor.
Oh, okay.
Rather than just going into the wah wah pedal. But a lot of times I don't use the compressor. I only use it usually for the Hendrix show to beef up the signal of the Strat just a little bit, so that the wah wah pedal reacts a little bit more to it, and then also it raises the level of the signal and kind of evens it out for all the other pedals. So the next thing I go into is a Vox Wah, and I have one of Jimmy's Vox Wahs, so I know what it's supposed to sound like. I don't take that out anymore because I got kind of paranoid having it out on the stage.
Yeah, I imagine so.
So I found a bunch of pedals that I could get to sound like that pedal. And so that's what I run into next. And then after that, I run into a fuzz face. And out of a fuzz face, I'm going, and all these are all old vintage pedals. Out of the fuzz face, I'm going into a Univibe. And out of the Univibe, I'm going into this is the only pedal that isn't vintage. It's kind of an overdrive. It's made by this company that makes vintage amps over in Germany. And the guy said, "Hey, I make a pedal too. Would you like to try it?" And I said, "Sure." So I tried it, and then I noticed that this pedal made any amplifier I played through. It didn't matter how bad the amplifier sounded. I could make that amplifier sound good as long as I had this pedal with me.
Wow. What is it?
It's called a 69 pedal.
Oh, okay.
69 sound or something, I guess. But it's a Tone Hunter makes it. And I really like the sound of it. It will. You can make any amp sound martially with this pedal, and I use it for just a little bit of overdrive before it finally gets to the amp.
Wow, that's really funny. The 69 pedal that I was familiar with that came out years ago. I don't know that it's made anymore. I think there was a 69 and there was a 70, and I believe what they were at that point. The 69 was like a germanium fuzz face, and the 70 was a silicon transistor-based fuzz face.
Right.
So I don't know if that's either one of these pedals. That would be strange if it was. It's cool.
Well, also this thing has two switches on it and they're tone switches. One of them adds bass, one of them adds treble, and then there's a tone knob on it, so you can adjust the tone of any one of those tones that it gives you. And then it also has an overdrive and a volume, and it just. It's hard, I like pedals that it's hard to make them sound bad. And this is a pedal like that, which will give you grit, but also give you definition.
Oh, very
so
cool.
It's not fuzzing out to the point where like, you hear a lot of guitar players and they sound all processed and they go for a dirty sound and all you hear is this shh and it sounds like an electric razor going like that. You go like, well, I'm sure that sounds good in your room, but with the band, it doesn't sound that good.
It's Angry Bees.
Yeah, and so I was looking for something that would sound good with the band, and I'm always looking for that.
Yeah, it makes a difference, man. It makes it like a lot of times something that you record with doesn't sound as good in a band in a combo situation, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So,
well, people have this idea now that things should be turned to 10. And that they should play as hard as they can on 10, and that's going to be a good sound. And really, 9 times out of 10, it's really not that good of a sound to produce for a microphone, for a PA system, and then for a set of ears. It's. I learned a lot about this from some engineers down in San Francisco because I used to be. My manager owned a studio called the Automat in San Francisco where a lot of big hit songs were recorded by Santana. And he used to manage Santana, and he managed Herbie Hancock and the Pointer Sisters and a lot of really big name acts that I could name, Moby Grape, Cold Blood, just stuff like that. And he produced Apocalypse Now soundtrack, and that's how I met him. Was when I worked on Apocalypse Now.
That's right, because you did as part of that soundtrack.
Yeah, I did some soundtrack for it.
Yeah. I want to back up just for 1 second. And if you don't want to mention, you don't have to. You said you found some wahs that sound like Jimmy's old Vox.
Right.
Do you want to tell us what you're using?
Well, if you go out and you find an old Clyde McCoy or something that's not all too beat up, they sound pretty good.
Oh, so you're actually finding older units that you think sound like Jimmy's.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Something that Jimmy would go, okay, someone stole my wah-wah pedal last night. I need something tonight, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I figured that I'd be like, okay, I'll hunt that down for you, Jimmy. This is...
That's cool. So, and that goes into, do you normally carry a rig, or do you call out a backline for, like fly dates and things?
Some places they have to use backline, and that's unfortunate because rarely do they have stuff that I would choose. Mm-hmm. But that's just the breaks,
Yeah.
I mean, if you had, what's the perfect rig for you, amp?
Well, actually, I like it. If it's a big place, I like what Jimmy used. I like at least 300 watt stacks on the front and another 50 watt half stack on the side.
Wow. So you like the side fill coming at you?
Yeah, and I would like a 122 Leslie. I've got a 147 on the side, because I really try to go for actual sounds, as close as I can for the song.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. And Jimmy used Leslie's towards the end of his career, so
yeah,
it has a lot to do with getting certain sounds right.
And the Univibe, it's an older Univibe. It's not one of the newer ones they make now.
Oh, it's the old vintage one.
Okay.
In fact, I just sent it off in the mail today to Kevin Randall, who is really a Univibe expert. Because while I was over on the East Coast, some guy said, "Hey, plug in this pedal, the speed pedal. I want you to check it out and check out what I did." And I plugged it in, and it immediately blew something up in my Univibe.
Oh,
never got to even hear what it was, or even discuss what it did. I think what it was is he had a switch so that you could set the speed of the Univibe by hitting a switch, and or hit the switch again, and you could use the regular, speed up and slow down portion of it. But it immediately blew mine up, and then he went home and grabbed me another little, like a Voodoo Vibe or something, so I could use it for the night.
Wow!
Yeah, I invented this pedal that's going to destroy all of yours.
Right?
Yeah, and that's what it did. So I just sent mine off to.
Wow!
Today.
So unfortunate.
Yeah, man.
So
it was malicious, though. If he'd done it, and started laughing about it, then I would be, I'd be up for murder right now.
There'd be a guitar sticking out of his head,
right, or at least part of it.
What do you do to my dog?
So I want to touch base on your Hendrix bands, and then we're going to get into the other band that you're in briefly, but. It was interesting. The last time we had spoke, you said that you have a different band in the U.S. Than you have a different band in Europe than the one you use in the U.S. When you go to Europe, your guys are already there.
Yeah, they're German guys. That just happened that way because I was trying to make it to Europe years ago, and a German guy, Horst Stockelhaus, who later died of mad cow disease. He was a bass player. He brought me over. He was a big bass player over in Germany, and from a famous band called Birth Control, and also the editor of a huge music magazine called Fachtblatt. And everything. And he got me over there, and he said, I play the bass, and I can find a drummer, and if you'd like to come to Germany, I'd like to bring you over. And so that was my connection with that. I've been doing it that way ever since I've been going over there.
Interesting.
Well, it saves on flight costs.
Yeah, flight costs
sure.
and everything, and they're already there, and they're really great musicians too to play with. They're
And I'm sure they get you the right rig that you need there.
Yeah, I've since, like I said, found the guy Tone Hunter who builds like more hand-wired, authentic Marshall type stuff.
Oh, cool.
Stuff, because I didn't want to go with Marshall because of what they make now. I don't feel is top quality.
No.
You'd have to find something older in order to get what I would like.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind doing that, but I didn't have the time to hunt that down in Germany. I only had time to play there and then jump on a flight home. So this guy kind of emerged. He came to the show and said, "Hey, come and check me out. I'm in Cologne." I said, "Oh, great. That's where I stay So when we had a day off, I went over and checked out his amps, and I loved them.
Nice.
And he's a really nice cat too, because that has a lot of bearing on it.
Mm-hmm.
If I really would have loved his amp, but then found out that the guy wasn't a nice guy or something, I wouldn't want to try to help him,
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's noble.
And, in today's world, really, taking out a vintage Marshall, I mean, there's so many guys that make those clones now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To the exact spec that the originals were made out of.
Yeah. And I even started using Engel over there, another German amp.
Yeah. Good company.
And the fans were coming up to me and going, "Hey, why aren't you not using Marshall?" I said, "Well, because I like the sound of these Engels." And he goes, "Yeah, but why you don't use Marshall?" And they kept saying that, and I kept on fielding that question over and over every night. Finally, I said, "Okay, fine. Back to Marshall." And then this guy emerged, and his cabinets look like Marshalls. And so when they say, "How come you don't use Marshall?" I go, "Well, actually, this is a Marshall." I said, "It's more like a real old Marshall, only brand new." So
that's cool.
That's why I'm using them. They go, "Oh," and they don't continue with the "why you're not to use Marshall."
It's like a brand new, really great old Marshall that isn't going to blow up every other night. So,
exactly.
It's like what Marshall should produce now in order to. This is our top of the line amplifier, is what it should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like all the companies that made something back then. There was this mentality of we can make it better, and they kept on making it smaller and smaller and smaller, and they weren't thinking about the slight differences in sound that was happening, and eventually they got so far away from it that it's not anything like the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And now people are going back to that older sound because they're realizing that it's fatter and that it puts on your signal is going to be thicker. And it's going to be, you're going to be able to really control your playing a lot easier than fighting to hear yourself.
Yeah, for sure. They sound better. They feel better. They feel more organic. It gets along with the guitar player better. I think. The better the amp is, it's a better playing experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Jeff Beck with the equation with Jeff Beck. I like Jeff Beck with a Les Paul, but come on. I like them way better with a Stratocaster.
Yeah. I have to agree. Agree.
It's like you take these things out of the equation, and things tend to go awry. And so I try to put everything as much as I can back to Jimmy's equation, and I'm finding that that's the key.
Yeah.
Now, if I had the money, I'd be buying Marshall Majors over there and. And very old tweed cabinets, and I'd try to own, because I met a guy in Italy that had a couple of Jimmy's stacks.
Wow!
And I was like, oh my god! I actually got to play through them. I was like thrilled. I was whoa,
wow.
Phew.
Yeah, some vibe there, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but I imagine that you're in another band, which is how we met. You're in another band called Heart by Heart, which is you and Steve Fawcett and Mike DeRozier, the original guys from Heart. Yeah. And I imagine your rig in that is not the same as what you would do the Hendrix thing with.
It's way toned down from that lower wattage and everything, because it's all about just playing these parts and stuff and getting it all right.
Mm-hmm.
It's Hendrix is like my musical vacation. Heart by Heart is more my musical work because I have to stand accountable for every note, so
yeah,
which is not a problem. I don't have a problem doing that at all. I actually enjoy playing music. Once I get to the point where I know every note, now I can have fun with what I'm going to do while I'm playing that note.
Right. So, right. So what's the rig there? You said it's scaled down. What's the rig for that?
Now I'm using 2 Randy Hansen amplifiers that are made by an amp company called Golden Phi here in Seattle.
Ah.
And I worked with an amp guy here, and he made 2 amplifiers and named them after me. And they're 212 amplifiers, and I'm running them in stereo. I run echo on one and run the other one dry.
So 212 combos?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're 18-watt amplifiers, so they're fairly quiet.
Nice. Well, we all know all too well that 18-watt amps don't have to be quiet.
Yeah. Can you hang on a second? Because I got to ask my manager to call them because I'm supposed to be at rehearsal at 4:00, and there's no way I'm going to be there.
Oh well, we're ready to wrap as well. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think we've touched on all the bases that we possibly can.
We absolutely,
because we all the way from birth to Heart by Heart. So
yes, we're already up to date here now.
Yeah, totally.
Except for me getting my ring back, I lost my all my jewelry on a flight over there when I came over to do the Hendrix show, and this guy named Angel heard about it, and he made an exact copy from a picture of the ring, my favorite ring that I'd had for years, and I'm wearing it today, and I only lost the ring a little over a month ago.
Wow.
And now he's already made a copy of it, and it's like a Indian jewelry type ring. It's really big. It almost covers 3 fingers,
Wow.
But it's got a lot of turquoise in it and silver and everything. And I got it back the same day as I got the news of one of my best friends in Germany just passed. And I got it exact same time as that. So I took it as a sign that was him saying I'm all right, because it's like a brand new ring now.
Well, that's
cool,
awesome, man.
Yeah.
I hope you find the original one, and
But I wanted to tell you that because now it makes this one the special ring. The other one was just one I bought at a swap meet, but this was made for me. It was like it's
cool.
real special.
Wow. I guess it is even cooler.
Yeah, man.
So. Well, Randy, I know you got to run. We're keeping you from rehearsal, and I don't want to do that because the rehearsals are those pesky things you need to do before you can actually play. So, so thank you very much for taking the time, my friend.
Yeah, man,
and next time you're around the East Coast, we'll all get together. I think it's going to be pretty soon.
Yes.
So we'll all get together and have some fun. And meantime, go rehearse and go play some killer music, man.
All right, thanks. Great talking with you guys.
Likewise. Take care. Well, and there you have the story.
Yeah.
And, or a couple of stories, or stories within the stories.
That was, man, that was crazy. And that, when I honestly believed the stories that I've, the I guess the urban legends that I've heard about Hendrix, and then he had this whole thing. That is just,
and I think I've heard some of that before.
I never heard
but you never know where the source is, it's from and how credible and everything.
But he got to talk to a lot of people that were close to him.
This is a guy that talked to the people that were around, Yeah,
if if that is true, in which, a lot of weird stuff was going on back in those days. It's a pretty sad thing, man, because that dude was he was the game changer. We've talked about that.
Big time game changer, one of a kind, and what might he have been doing a few years from then? It's like it was always something new and unusual that you never heard before. He was always taking and twisting things and making new things, whether it's sounds or just songs that were different. God knows where he would have been.
It's crazy, man.
So, yeah.
But, Randy's thing, I mean, I've seen some of it, and it's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, like how he plays. Like, you watch video of Hendrix, and then you watch video of Randy, and just the movements are almost the same.
Well, I think it's probably true that in order to sound like...
You kind of have to imitate the person.
Right, you want to sound as close as you can to them. You pretty much have to imitate their playing style as closely as possible.
Yeah, I mean, imitators that do voiceover, voices.
Mm-hmm.
When you see these guys, they'll tell you that they're trying to, like, even move like the person that they're imitating.
Right.
So when you see, like, a Frank Caliendo doing, John Madden.
Which is the funniest goddamn thing.
And he's so good at it, but it looks like John Madden. Mm-hmm. Even when they do the makeup, it looks like him doing it.
Right.
So I guess that's a thing. You have to kind of do those movements to get that whole flow going too.
Right. Because everybody attacks a guitar differently. You have to learn how to attack the guitar properly.
And he plays a left-handed Strat upside down.
Yes.
Which is, think about that, because you got to spend extra for the left-handed Strat.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 10 or 15%. So, you're taking on that. You're going, I got to pay more for my guitars than the guy that I'm imitating.
Well, it changes the relative string lengths.
Yes.
And
there's a big difference to that.
Right. And the whammy bars on the other side of the bridge.
Yep. And the pickups go opposite way.
Right. The bridge pickup.
Yeah, the bridge pickup. Yeah. So,
yeah, it all makes a difference.
Stuff. Yeah, man.
But, there you have it.
Yes. So, until next time, my friend.
I'm looking forward to it.
I am Mick Marcelino, and you...
I'm still Jeff Bober.
Yeah, it's because you are Jeff Bober.
That's who I am.
And we are saying...
Onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmsonAxis. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage, AmsonAxisCast.com. Thanks for listening.